My first son is Luke. Here's my takeaways from Luke and what he shared with me over the last year about lessons that he learned from me and my family. Number one was education. Education. I pushed education. The other thing was integrity. Doing the right thing. Always. And friendships and being open and honest with people. One thing that I always wanted to do were the 3 E's with my kids. It's make sure they get the education. And with education meant experiences in between grade school and high school. It was a big decision. So I brought him to a private school, a military school, and I really wanted him to go there. And I said, listen, I'm going to put you on an incentive because I didn't want him to lose focus on top education in high school, a public school. Sports were going to be different too because it was a different friends, a different area. Luke decided that he was going to go to South St. Paul. It was a public school. He was young, ambitious, full of vinegar. A friend of mine came to our family business and said, Rock, I got an idea. I got some prototypes, and I'd like to have your children try them for free. It was a new product, and I was a hockey player. My kids played hockey and so on. When they were younger, they all skated. Showed up with our rollerblades. Do you remember rollerblades? I'm talking about way back. So Luke was like, I don't know, 12 to 14 years old. And the kids lived on a cul-de-sac. So they would play hockey with rollerblades. Well, what Luke did with rollerblades was he started skating miles to the high school before he started driving. So my biggest fear was he was going down these huge hills for miles to get to school with rollerblades. And there were no elbow pads, no helmets, no knee pads and all that stuff that you can get today. So I was amazed. In fact, I was impressed that these kids were on rollerblades. Of course, everybody knows what happened to rollerblades. It took off, it went public, and that original owner that acquired the rights to rollerblades ended up going to owning the Minnesota Wild. It was a big deal back in the day in St. Paul, Minnesota. That was basically one of the first developers and distributors of rollerblades. His first name was Cliff, and his father's name was Cliff. And they were great people, and they owned a sign shop. And they worked with me as a sign shop, and they brought these rollerblades in. So that's one of the first things that I noticed that Luke was, he was a go-getter. He made it happen. Now the other thing is with Luke, he was the oldest, and when he was small, I'm talking about 2-3 years old, I'd had a 10-speed, and I had the child seat in the back of us. And every time we would roll out in South St. Paul, it's a very hilly area, we would ride bikes, and he was really a cute kid. Just the two of us was the song, I think it was Bill Withers. I'd have a little radio going on, and Luke and I would ride together. Every time I hear that song, and I know Luke's brought it up to me too, it reminds us of those days. Luke is a very gregarious guy and very smart. In fact, I didn't realize how smart he was. But he was always open to learn. He played hockey, played baseball, and so on through grade school, early high school, But then he realized, you know what, Dad? Baseball sucks. I'm playing out in right field. I'm not starting. I'm going to change sports. I'm like, oh, no. Because Dan was playing baseball, and I thought, oh, you guys are going to be on the same team. No, Luke had his own mind. He picked his own classes and so on. And that's when he decided to play varsity tennis and cross country. He excelled. And going to tennis, I played a lot of racquetball when I was younger, and the kids knew that. We belonged to a tennis club, and I hired a tennis coach for Luke. I says, Luke, if you want to take serious, go talk to this person. Luke learned a lot, and he became in the playoffs in the state and so on. He had a great coach, and it was a woman coach, University of Minnesota. She had a background in coaching in Minnesota, and she played collegiate. I would sit there and watch Luke. That was one of the things that I did. I always tried to attend their sporting events. I was sitting next to the coach, and they were watching, and she was telling me about the talent Luke's got. And I'm like, wow, he's got talent. She was an encourager, uplifting, and she empowered Luke. Luke started out as, let's say, a doubles, first team doubles, and then maybe second or third singles player, and he eventually became and earned first single. And he would go deep into the playoffs. Never went to state, but always good. And a lot of these guys eventually became Division I tennis players. Luke never went out at University of Wisconsin, but after his second year, but he was in a tough major. He's a mechanical engineer and business, so he was a double major, very difficult. His sophomore year, very similar to me, he started watching the players his freshman year and says, you know what, Dad, I think I could compete. But he never really told me that. He was so busy he just couldn't go out for the team. But I think he realizes, hey, I could play Division I. But he waited, and I'll tell you what happened eventually. So he got through school. I had some great people and friends that had a degree in mechanical engineer and business that I worked with, and that were my consultants at my business. And they went to Wisconsin. I remember Luke calling me one day and saying, Dad, I'm going to change my major. And I was really upset because I thought, God, he's on course. He's ready to rock and roll. And he's at the finish line, man. He's at the finish line. He could get this ME degree, and ME is tough, man. I'm telling you, I could never do it. This consultant told me, his name was John, he says, listen, Rock, I went to Badgerland. And it's easy to change your major from ME to business. And that's what Luke's trying to do. So guess what? Luke calls me. John happens to be in my office at the time. And he goes, Dad, I'm thinking about changing my major. I says, Luke, listen, I got to go. I'm going to put you on hold. I want you to talk to John. John went to University of Wisconsin, very similar background. So he got in a separate room, talked to Luke. After that half-hour discussion, whatever it was, the next day, Luke called me and said, Dad, I've decided I'm going to stay in the ME program and business. And I said, great, Luke, that's good. I let John know, and I thanked him for keeping Luke on course. So Luke ended up with an ME degree, mechanical engineering from Madison, and a business degree. I was so proud of him because when he went to graduate, of course I went through the ceremony. It was in the building ME, mechanical engineering. And man, no LaManna, our family name. has ever completed a mechanical engineering degree, having that license after your name. That was a big deal. To me, it was bigger than law, you know, or a doctor even. I thought that was pretty cool. So that's one story of Luke going through college. I'm going to give you another story about Luke. When he was graduating, I had a company called Advanced Converting. And I was way overwhelmed. I became a workaholic really bad. And I was in the process of selling it quietly, except for my employees, because I wanted to be honest with my employees and so on. But it was driving me crazy in my health and everything else. Well, of course, I'm there at work. There were fax machines back in those days. So I believe it's before emails. So the fax came over. I'm still working. It's like 9:30 at night. And I see faxes. And, you know, when I see a fax, I'm hoping it's a purchase order. It's a purchase order. I'm praying for a purchase order. And here it's Luke's resume. It's his resume. Very impressive. And he's asking me to work with me at Advanced Converting and make it a family business. That really touched me. At the same time, I realized how tough a family business is and that I was unsuccessful with the family business in partnership because I had to do it myself. I had to be an equity partner, majority. And my dad would always say to me, if you're going to be in business and if you could do it alone, do it. No partners. It's the same thing as what my dad would say is, hey, listen, if you're going to jump off the high bridge, don't bring your brother. Well, I realized I was on the high bridge. I wasn't going to bring my son. So guess what? I had to tell Luke, no. Go out and get a job. And guess what? He did. He got an ME, multiple degrees, and he knew what he wanted to do, and he got into sales, which was impressive, and optimize operations. He dealt with big companies, how to optimize their equipment, okay, which was slitting, rewinding, and so on. It was a big deal. I was really proud of him, and he goes, you know, Dad, this sucks, man. You know, being an engineer, and it's not me. It's not me. He basically got into sales, did what he had to do, and I know he had a good reputation because I knew the companies and their owners knew him. He did well, but he always went to a smaller company because he wanted to see what entrepreneurs were all about. I always kind of thought that Luke had some entrepreneurial background. He had the grit for it. But now he decided to get married. That was a big deal because he was in love. And I always tease him about making sure you pick the right horse. Well, guess what? He picked a thoroughbred. His wife is a thoroughbred. And she had the opportunity to be a doctor or a dentist. The reason why she decided to go to dentistry is because of the effort and that she wanted a family. That was her goal, a family, and I'll be a dentist also. So guess what they did? These two decided to get married, had children right away. I think they were in their early 20s, and had two children, have two children. They decided to buy a dentist office. Yeah. They bought a dentist office right away. Dr. Abby was in great demand to run certain organizations, and they chose not to. So I says, wow, good for them. They were buying homes in Wisconsin. Abby had great parents and very supportive and deep roots in Wisconsin and deep roots at Madison. So it was a big deal. So Luke went and became an engineer, unhappy, helped his wife build the business, And he's got a great mechanical mind. His background is automotive. He knew how to fix cars when he was younger. He worked at a gas station. He was, mechanical. And he's what we call a REITs, a real estate professional. He would analyze real estate operations and investments for investment services. So Luke was doing that. Abby's building the business. They got children, and their children have allergies, serious allergies. So everything to schools and so on, they were very limited. So they had to make some decisions on the sacrifice of doing all the right things. They did a lot of research, and Dr. Abby did a lot of great things to figure things out and make sure that those kids were safe environment, and they picked the right schools, and they sacrificed. In the meantime, the combination of Luke and his wife and the family started growing. And it's the American dream. They were doing the American dream, which I was really proud of. They came to visit me. I was already in Florida. And Luke came down and had a heart-to-heart with me. And he says, Dad, I really don't like mechanical engineering and what I'm doing, so I've decided to go back to school. I said, well, how are you going to do that? You got 2 kids. Abby's working. I mean, how are you going to do this? He goes, well, I'm going to go to Marquette. I'm going to go to Marquette and get my MBA in business management and finance. I'm like, wow, okay. We did it. And the beautiful thing about Luke was he's probably the oldest student at that time. His mentor took him under his wing. And he really helped Luke get to a CFA. Do you know what a CFA is? A chartered financial analyst. Very few people get through that. It's like a PhD and more in financial assessments. It's a big deal. When you see CFA behind your banker or a financial advisor, top line, you have to get that license. And it's for life. And it really gives you your credibility. It takes years of study while you're married and kids and pass the test. And there's 3 tests. It takes 1 each year, and you got to pass each year, because if you don't, you got to redo it, and you lose a year. So it's a tough thing. One of the biggest, proudest things I was Luke was picked on Fast Money to represent Marquette in a GPA discussion and grading about a college student proposing a valuation or assessment of certain questions. And he was on TV. You think I went off the charts on that? Big time. And when he went to graduate, I was so proud, because I went to that ceremony, and he, on stage, receiving it, there's only like 40 kids or less. Luke's the oldest one, up there accepting his certificate and his degree with the 2 kids on each arm. That's how cool that was. So, unbelievable. His wife by his side. So I am so proud of these guys. Now, we keep on going, because you got to remember, it's education, staying the course, being a person of integrity, and so on. Then Luke decided to go to some careers. Guess what happened? Got additional mentors in the field of finance and REITs. That's called mentorship. He had great mentorship, and he realized, you know what, Dad, by the time I'm 50, these guys are all be gone, because he was one of the youngest assessors a financial analyst there, but he started seeing what the 55 and older project managers were being let go, because it's pretty common in the banking industry. Luke started thinking about, wow, what are we going to do? So eventually, to fast forward, him and his wife decided to team up. They're going to do a roll-up. So they did a roll-up. They bought multiple operations. Luke was the, I'm going to say, co-founder and visionary of what we call a roll-up in our industry. We're going to buy 3 to 5 different operations, and eventually, when the time is right, we're going to sell them. And that's what happened. They became entrepreneurs to do what they had to do. I was firsthand seeing some of their negotiations because I'm in that world, mergers and acquisitions, and I represent either the buyer or the seller. Luke hired a specialist and Abby to decide to do what they had to do. And guess what? They were successful. You know what that did for me? I said to myself, oh, I don't have to worry about their financial future. That's a big deal when your parents realize that your kids are successful. And that's what next generation is all about in your children. They've mastered their career in their 40s at an early age, went through all the tough stuff, raised 2 great kids, and now they're independent. Their mastery, their foundation from the families on both sides, of the integrity of the traditional families that we are, in a way old school, on Luke's side and Abby's side. And then they mastered their careers. Now they're independent, and now they're passing it on to their children. I am so proud of what they've done. So these are stories, and I continue to talk to Luke about life, and he's very close, very committed. And Abby, I mean, it's a beautiful thing to see the commitment and the dedication of a couple and raising their kids. They're not only passing on the education aspect of it, they're passing on the mastery of it, generations of the 3 E's: education, encouragement, empowerment. Now I see my grandson and my granddaughter taking those same steps of, I'm going to call it greatness, of giving back, of community work, of friendships, of education, the medical field. I can't tell you how proud I am of these kids. And that's why I do these YouTubes. Because I'm figuring, hey, someday when I'm dead and gone, they're going to know. My father never sat down and said, Rock, you were great. I'm telling you how proud I am of not only my 3 kids, their spouses, their families, their children, and they're doing all the right things, man. It's called integrity. And they're fighting for a better life, not only for themselves, for their kids. Because someday they'll have grandkids. And I just hope and pray that they have the health and the faith and the appreciation of what foundations that we've had in our lifetime. Luke is the oldest, but he keeps Danny and Laura in his mind all the time. It's as if he realizes how important family is, even though he's busy. Respectful of the grandparents, of the parents, of people. I love the way when I'm at a family gathering, when I see Luke, Dan, and Laura work the room with their cousins and my nephews and nieces and the grandchildren and so on. So I'm proud of them of that too, because they stuck it out. That's the stick and stay. And the stick and stay was always added by my father. You stick and stay, it's bound to pay. You know what that means? That means don't get off the tracks. Payback is always from the faith of God. The gifts, the gratitude, the appreciation. Honor your mother and your father. Anyway, that was my mastery of parenting of Luke, the oldest. And I'll give you one more item. His name. I wasn't about family names. I wanted to break the chain because all my brothers and sisters and my mother and father always named the kids after family names. I said, you know what? I'm going to change that. And my wife at the time, their mother, we agreed on Matthew Luke. All the way. Matthew Luke. But when he was born, and the way he looked at the time, I looked at him and I said, he doesn't look like a Matt or a Matthew. He looks more like a Luke. So let's switch it. Luke Matthew. And I am so happy that we did. So that's how he got his name, Luke Matthew. And of course, I love that because of the Bible. Uncle Frank was a dude. He was one of my mentors, and I'd bring him down to Chicago from Minnesota. I'd bring my boys. Uncle Frank was a huge, big dude. And he'd take him under his wing and say, your dad's this, your dad's that, which was cool. Uncle Frank would always say, listen, Rock, don't bring trouble to people. Always bring joy. So that's how I'm going to leave this. Always bring joy. I'll talk to you soon.